Carol with Carolbcrafts. Welcome to my Facebook Live. So tonight we can discuss it too, talking about the Stamparatus, which is a stamp positioning tool with a hinge. Yay. We waited a long time for this. Stampin' Up finally came through for us. And so I'm going to talk about my experience with the Stamparatus, the good and the bad. I'm not gonna, try to gloss over anything, but I'm going to share some of my tweaks that I've come to help me to love my Stamparatus, and I'm going to share those with you. You might have tweaks of your own. You might see some that other people have done. That's fine. You find what's best for you. I'm sharing what has helped me. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time face to face. I want to get right into it. But I've got to change my lighting. So give me just a second to do that. So yeah, this is the Stamparatus. And it is a stamp positioner. And the unique thing about the Stamparatus is it has two plates. Whereas other stamp positioners that you may have seen or used just has the one. So this makes it like doubly good. One thing you don't want to do is fold this over like that, because it was not designed to store like that. If you want to store, you have to remove one of these plates and store it on top. So not hard to do. I think most of you figured that out, but gonna do like you've never seen it before, just so you are familiar with it. Okay, so we do have the two plates. It comes with two magnets. They're bar magnets. They're very strong. They love each other. Don't even let them get within 3 inches of each other, or you will hear a nice smack and maybe even a crack. So what I have done, because these are hard to pick up. If you put it like that, it's hard to pick up. You need a handle. So I tried washi tape first. I'm gonna try to keep these guys apart. And washi tape worked for a little while, but then after a few days it would start, breaking and tearing. So I came up with the idea to use. Oh, I put it out here so I wouldn't have any trouble finding it. I'm using about 4 inches of packing tape, clear packing tape. I'm turning it so that the sticky side is up. I'm going to put my magnet. It probably would work better if I do this on a non-metal surface, because I've already done this. Okay, so if you do it on a metal surface, the magnet's gonna like go crazy on you. So I'm going to put this long ways, halfway in the middle, and then I'm just going to turn it over and basically just fold it over. Now it doesn't look very pretty like that, so I took my scissors, and this was kind of fun because my scissors wanted to stick to my magnet. So I cut the sides off like that. And now this gave me my little handle. But of course, I had to make it look pretty. So I just went around here on the corner and made a little curve there. And then on the other side, I did the same thing. Came up and made a little curve. And again, it likes to stick. And then I just kind of went straight across, so it was somewhat even. It's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. It just has to be functional. So that's how I did my magnet covers, and this lasted pretty long. It's pretty strong when you're pulling it up. It's pretty strong. And then if it does crack or break, you can always pull it off and put something new on it. And to get the old adhesive off, I just used an alcohol wipe. So Just use an alcohol wipe to get the old adhesive off, and you can put another one on. They last a long time though. Okay, so that's our magnet story. Now we're going to go to another story, and that's about the hinges. The first thing I noticed about it was I was fighting the hinge. I was like literally like pushing down against the hinge to get a good image, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized, and the way I realized it was I got a stamp. Let me get a stamp. Let me get one of these cling stamps, but you know, it doesn't have to be cling. It could be any rubber stamp. I put my rubber stamp down there, and I looked, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. The stamp on this side isn't even touching the bottom. So I moved it closer to the hinge, and I'm like, whoa, it's not even. I mean, there's a big gap there now. So I realized that what the problem was is that the base is too low. So I can't do anything about the hinge, but I can do something about the base. And what did I decide to do? Well, I tried different things. I've seen people use this mat here, and that's, you know, and they would use it underneath their foam mat, and that's okay, but you don't really need that rubber when you're using your this. You don't, and it just didn't work. So what I came up with, just showing you what other people have come up with, and they do sell this if you know, want to get this. This is like $4 or something. I mean, you could use this, but I'm going to show you what I did. All right. Hi, Carol. So and believe me, this was a process. This was a process. So, you know that we sell these mats. These are embossing mats, and I think this is all that comes with it. I think it's like $11 or $12, but it's well worth the investment. I don't really need this unless I'm going to use it in my big shot. I just wanted to show you that it actually comes with it. So I'll put that aside. So the first thing I want to use is this thin rubber mat. Now I can use it this way, or I can use it this way, depending on what I'm stamping on. And that's not really thick enough to make a difference. So I have a piece of chipboard, which is about a 1/16 of an inch thick, not very thick. It goes on top of that. Now at first I was using just the chipboard, but you see how it slides around? And then I got the idea, well, why not put something rubber under there? And I already had this in my craft room, so I'm like, okay, now it doesn't slide around. So that is what I use for my rubber stamps, these guys right here. The thin blue mat and the thin sheet of chipboard. And the way that I remember is thin mat, thick stamp. Okay, thin mat, thick stamp. Let me show you what I use for photopolymer. For photopolymer, I have the thick gray mat that comes with the big shot embossing mats. And again, you can use it either way depending on what you're stamping. I use that underneath my foam mat that we have to use for our photopolymer. And that helps to raise up so that when I use the photopolymer stamps, I don't have to push so hard. Okay, so speaking of photopolymer, when you have photopolymer and you have a piece of paper, you don't want to put your your magnets near your photopolymer stamp, because these magnets are a little too tall to use with the photopolymer, so you have to back them away from the stamp in order to get a good image. If you get them too close to the stamp, the stamp's not going to make contact. But you will see that later. So let's go ahead. Let me look at my notes and see how you can see my notes are really like all over the place, but that's okay. Yeah, here's the side I need. I told you about the packing tape, the hinges, the rubber mats. So yeah, so the thick mat for thin stamps, thin mat for thick stamps. The thin stamps being photopolymer. So thick mat, thin stamps, thin mat, thick stamps. If that helps you remember which to use. Okay, so let's talk about how you can place your image perfectly on where you want it. So you've probably seen me do this. I'm going to put my photopolymer away for right now. Get my thin mat back out because I'm going to be using rubber stamps. So thin mat, thick stamps. And I'm going to throw a piece of grid paper on there. Now this is grid paper that you can buy that goes with the Stamparatus. You can, I don't know how much the sheets you get, but you get a lot of sheets. Hi, Marianne. So you don't have to worry about running out. So if you're doing a lot of one thing and you have die cuts, this is something that you can use to, a little trick, and you've probably seen this, maybe you haven't. Okay, so rather than stamp on a sheet of cardstock and then die cut, like stamp, die cut, stamp, die cut, stamp, die cut, you just die cut one template like this. And then you cut all of your hearts that you want. This is the heart that I used for my swap card this month. I don't want to lose my die. So I'm going to put this here, and so rather than stamping, I'm going to just put a little bit of adhesive there to keep this down. It's not as important with rubber, but with photopolymer, you definitely. Now before I do that though, I have a piece of 4x6 window sheet. So this is going to help me place my image. And I'm so glad you're part of my story. That is the image that I used. Now I'm not putting my stickers on my cling stamps. That's another story. We're not going to talk about that right now. So, so this is, I found the easier way to do is to stamp and then put your so I'm just going to put this here, stamp my image, sometimes you might need to do it the other way, but tonight I'm going to do it this way. So that's my image. So now I know that that's where my Stamparatus is going to stamp. So I'm going to take, and I try to use, okay, this is going to be kind of hard to slide under there without moving my paper. Yep, I'm going to have to move my thing a little bit over. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. I should have had my stamp over further. All right, so I'm just going to move it over a little bit, like right there. It's still going to stamp. That's good. Now my paper will fit on there. And that's still wet, so I'm going to dry that off. All right, so that's where it's going to stamp. So now that I've left myself room, I can slide this down in there. And that's going to tell me where it's going to stamp. So now I can just put my magnet on the template. I try to just use one magnet when I can, because two, it's hard to keep track of them. So now that I know where that's going to stamp, all I have to do is put that adhesive there, put that in place. And another thing is you want to put a stamp pad underneath your plate there. That helps. And then there you go. That is, so to get it out, it's best to just go down under. And the first one comes out a little harder because it's really sticky. The second one, not so bad. So this is so much easier than having to cut and then die cut. So it's easier to just die cut, put it in there, and then stamp. Okay, so that's great. That's great. So, but what if you're doing mass and you don't have a template? What if you're just doing a regular sentiment? Like, and I'll clear this off here. So this is the Stampin' Cleaner or whatever. I just took it out of this little container and I use it to dry off my stamps. Alright, so I'm going to put my stamp away because, you know, if I don't, I'll lose it. I don't want to lose it. Okay, that one's done. Now, if you're doing these kinds of things, like the inside sentiment, I use the grid lines on my sheet, and that's sticky. I'm hoping that's not going to be too sticky. So make sure that your paper stays in the corner at all times. I just pick some corners, and then to kind of remind myself, I might mark a couple of the corners so that I know, hey, those are the corners I need to, and then get my stamp out. And I will put my stamp time for a celebration. Now, if I wanted to make sure my placement was right, I could use that sheet of window sheet and pick up my stamp. Stamp this. This, by the way, is from this adorable birthday cheer from the Occasions catalog. Nice big birthday sentiments. Okay, it actually looks good, so I would want to use that. And I'll put my, whoops, gotta watch those magnets. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this first one. And that's not perfect. I could stamp it again. That's the great thing about the Stamparatus. You don't have to be a seasoned stamper to get a good image. Now, so now I know if I take this off, make sure that paper stays in the corner. There. I can get another piece of paper, cardstock, put it right where I had the other one, using my corner marks there. ink it up. And there we go. So I could keep doing that and do my mass production that way. So that's some mass production tricks for you. Okay, so let me get my paper. Yeah, there are grid lines on here to help you position your stamp straight. That's another thing. If your item is too small to put a stamp on, let's say if I was going to stamp on a piece this small, just for fun, okay, I would have a hard time stamping on that and using my magnet. So what I do then is I just get a scratch piece of paper, which I didn't have one, but I'll make one real quick. One of these old ugly grid papers. I would put this just a tad, a tiny bit on here. Then I would stamp my image. How about if I was going to stamp this butterfly on here? I would stamp my image on the plastic. Oh, you did not see that. I hope. All right, so there's my butterfly. Now I'm going to slide this underneath there. Put the magnet on my paper. And then now I have my stamp on my little image, and I didn't have to try to fit my magnet on there where it wasn't going to get in the way. So that's another trick. All right, so I'm going to show you some multiple plates. How do you use these multiple plates? And I'm going to show you that with this Varied Bases stamp set. And this is a perfect stamp set for this technique. And what you have is, you have your paper, obviously. I'll put it up there in the corner. And so, if I were going to make a lot of these, can you imagine stamping one thing and then put another piece of paper, stamp the same thing? Well, this is where the hinges come in handy. So I have a little vase there. So we have our little vase. So I'm going to stamp my vase. And what color will my vase be? I got random stuff here. This is gray. Basic gray. Yep. And I'm having problems there because of my, oh, you know what? You know what it is? I am using my thin, I switched from rubber to photopolymer, and you can see the difference. Okay, so I need to thin stamps, thick mat. So now I need my thick mat, my rubber mat, and this, and that's going to make a big world of difference. Yeah, I was worried there for a minute. I'm like, what? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. Nope, I'm not. Okay. I thought I was, but I wasn't. All right, let's try this again. Oh, so much better. That is like easy stamping now. Easy stamping. Okay, so we have our basic gray. So I'm gonna leave that there on that plate. Clean it up a little bit. Not the stamp, just around. And now I'm gonna flip the plate over. So that stamp's on the bottom now. Now I'm going to stamp this little image here the flower, but I don't want it to, oops, it's sticking. Ooh, what can I do about that? All right, here's the thing you can do. Photopolymer likes to stick and it can mess you up. So I have a 1/2 inch by 4 inch piece of window sheet. I put it down there when I'm placing my stamp so that when I lift it up, it doesn't pull the paper, because if it pulls the paper, it can mess up your alignment, and then when you go to stamp again, you won't be stamping in the same place. You just have to remember to remove this before you stamp, before you ink up your stamp. The other thing I'm going to do is use a piece of scratch paper. Use that same scratch paper, and I'm going to cover up my face. So what I'm going to use lemon lime twist. No. Well, yeah, maybe. Why not? Lemon lime twist flower. Okay, so since I covered up the vase, it's not going to stamp on the vase. So now I'm going to leave that in place and get the ink off my hand. Oh gosh, I just don't know. Honestly. It's so crazy. All right, the other thing this little 4x6 strip can do for you is if you have some, these are the little flowers, and I've used red so you can actually see them. I'm going to use this to help me position my flowers in the right place. So if I was to try to do this, I could probably do it, and these are bigger, so yeah, I might be able to do it. But it's so much easier to just use this to position them, and I'm not going to get real fancy because I would have to stick my head in there, and I don't want to stick my head in there. Okay, so now I've used my plate here. I have my vase and my flower, my stem on this plate, but I need the other plate. Now you can do it like this, but I just like to switch out the plates. I don't know, I never do things the way I'm supposed to. Okay, so now I'm going to remove that plastic. I'm going to do some lovely lipstick. That should be fun. Lovely lipstick and lemon lime twist, my two favorite colors lately. And that's not perfect because, like I said, I didn't stick my head in there. But you get the idea. Okay, so now I need to do the sentiment. So I'll remove this. The sentiment is thanks, and I'm just going to put that here. Switch this around. I'll straighten it up a little bit. I'm not going to be too worried about it. And I'm going to do that in black. So, pick it up. Oh, I don't have my paper. It's another good reason to keep your paper in the corner in case you do get it a little crazy. You know where to put it back. Okay, so here we go with the thanks. All right, now that seems like, oh yeah, that's cool. But here's where it pays off. You get another piece of white paper. Put it there. It's a big one, but that's okay. So I'm not even going to start at the beginning. I'm going to go backwards now. So now I would start my mass stamping. My thanks. My flowers. bring my other one in. Switch it out. And like I said, you could do, but I don't have room on my desk to do it like that. But that would be cool if I could. And if you were doing a lot of these, you wouldn't close up your inks in between because that would be too much trouble. And you could go fast too. You know what? I should do my vase next because I have to mask it off. Okay, there's my vase. And now mask it off with that paper wherever it got off to. I'll use this paper. And there you see how that would work. And then my next piece of paper, I would just put there and do this. Flip it around, cover it up. Ink it up. So you can see how this would make your stamping so much easier if you were doing mass production. And I think this varied vases really lends itself to this technique here. And then of course you could come back in and do the other part too, the other two, the thanks and that. Okay, so that's that. All right, so we're ready to do a little fun stamping. A little fun stamping. That was fun too, but that's so fun stamping. What is fun? Okay, stamping in a row, or hinge stamping. Let's do hinge stamping. You guys all know hinge stamping. Hinge stamping is where you, and it's best if you use your hinges if you use a large, I tried using that stamp, it didn't work, so I'm like, well, I need a word stamp. So hinge stamping is basically, and I know you've all seen it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Basically, you put your image here, and you ink it up. You don't drop the ink pad. Oh, and I got to switch again. See, now I've got rubber, so now I need to get my thin rubber. You'll know when you go to stamp. It will tell you. No, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so I'm back to rubber. So, okay, some stamp there. Oh, the other thing I want to tell you is, and you may think that's dumb. Why is she telling me that? Don't push on your plate when you are stamping. Push on your stamp, just like you would if you were using a wood block or a clear acrylic block. Because one thing, you might warp your plate, you might damage your hinge, but you won't get a good solid image. So always push on your stamp. Move it down, 1. Ink it up. I'm pushing on the stamp. Move it down 1, and then you just keep going, you know, as long as you want to go, as far as you want to go. So that's hinge stamping, and that's also linear stamping too. I've heard it called linear stamping. So if you wanted to do linear stamping, but you didn't want to do something that the hinge might be too far apart for what you want to do, that's great for big stamps. But what if you wanted to do something smaller, like, again, I keep my stamps straight. And that, by the way, is from Rooted in Nature, one of my favorite sets. That You Are Wonderful. Okay, so what if you wanted to do butterfly? You really couldn't use the hinge for that. So you have to do a little math. All right, so one side I did 1 inch apart, and then this is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to put my grid paper, because that's what I'm going to use, and I'm going to put it down here in this corner, not in this little square here, not this square, but this square. I could use any square really, but so I'm going to put my paper here. Well, first of all, I'm going to pick that up on with my, well, put this back in place. There we go. All is well. All right, so now I'm going to ink up my stamp. And I'm using black. You would want to use something really pretty. I'm basically putting this corner in the corner of that 1 inch square there. Put it in place so it stays. Okay, now I want these alternating. So if I wanted them going all in the same direction, I could just move it up 1 inch. But because I'm alternating, I'm going to move it up 2 inches. And stamp. And then move it up 2 more inches. And I've got it in that corner there. And then stamp. Now I want it to go the other way. So I'm going to clean that off so I don't get my fingers inky. Too inky anyway. And then, so now I know it's going this way, so I want it, so it is the other way. So I'm going to, this is where I put it the first time, that first square. So now I know I want to go to the second square because I'm doing this one this way. Okay, so I'm going to skip a square and go up a square. And you just need to do your math so you know how many can you fit. This is a, let me see, this is a 3 3/4 by 5. So 5 inches. So I was able to fit 5 butterflies in 5 inches because I'm doing 1 inch for each square. So I wanted to do, well, I wanted my butterflies closer. So what am I going to do now? So now, since I want them closer, I'm not going to do 1 inch. I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch. And for that, I'm going to use 5 1/4 because I measured it. If I use 5 inches, it's not going to come out even. You see how this didn't come out even? So I had to say, oh, I need 5 1/4 inches so it will come out. So rather than putting this, starting it in the 1 inch, I'm going to start it in the 3/4 of an inch. But first I have to get my little butterfly in place. There. All right, so 3/4 of an inch here, and stamp. All right, so now I'm going to move it up, not 3/4, but 1 1/2. So there's 3/4 and 3/4 again. Because see, I have to leave space for that other one that's going in the other direction. Okay, so I'm going to move it up 3/4 and 3/4 again. And this grid paper is really great for this technique. And then lastly, 3/4 and 3/4. And that should come out even. Okay, and then like we did before, clean off our stamp, dry it off. It's important that you dry it off. Now this time, whoops, I'm hurrying here. So this time I'm going to turn it the other way, down in that 3/4 inch space there. Pick it up. So since I started with the 3/4, I'm going to go up 3/4 for my first one. So I'm actually 1.5 inches from the bottom. And then I'm going to go up 3/4 and 3/4. We're basically 1.5 inches, whichever is easier for you. For me, it's kind of easier to just do 3/4 and 3/4. 3/4 and 3/4. And this would be really pretty in color ink. And you could even, you know, change out the colors, like alternate, do a rainbow. I'm just showing you technique. I don't want to get too fancy. So you can see that you can do the hinge to go down, but you can also use the grid paper to go up and make some really pretty stuff. Alright, what's next? Now, I'm not going to show you this because you've probably seen it, but basically what you do is you put your stamp here. This is photopolymer. So I'm going to have to switch out again back to the thick matte, thick foam. And of course I want to use this to cover up my foam. Alright, so for the Life's Too Short, you basically are using, now you could mask and use your ink, or you can use your pens. These are actually the old Stampin' Write markers. I don't have the new ones. So for the little words, and I'm using my bullet point. So basically you just color your words. Maybe I'll use my brush tip because it's faster. It doesn't look as nice, but it's faster. Yeah, the little words, the brush tip seems to work better. I mean the bullet. Okay, so, and there again you have that photopolymer pull, which I forgot about. That's when you can use these little plastic pieces here. Let me turn that over. I'm going to cover up, I've actually got 2 of those. I'm going to cover up the part of the stamp that isn't being used with the plastic so that when I do pull away, that photopolymer isn't going to yank my paper out of place, because it will. It's very sticky. That's why your ink sticks to it. So yeah, I'm not really doing the best job here. I'm just giving you an idea of how to do this. Okay, and then you would clean off the life, remove my plastic, clean off the lives, and then for the only other thing, sometimes I use this for smaller cleanup, the cake part, sometimes it's best to use your pen sideways for like outlines, like that. And again, I've got my plastic here to keep it. So I'm not going to do this whole thing for you to see, because I think you've seen that before and you get the idea and you can figure it out how to best do it at home. But that's how you get those multicolor, like this has 3 colors. You can use your ink pads, your Stampin' pads, if you mask, but something like this would be too hard to mask, so you would definitely want to use your Stampin' Right markers. Okay, so just remember, if your photopolymer is pulling, and it will when you're trying to do this, just grab out your little plastic pieces of window sheet, cover up the part that you're not using, and it will do the trick for you. All right, lastly, well, let's do this. Another thing that you can do, and you've probably seen this too, is if you wanted to, you know, save space, you can actually line up your stamps here. You could do your vases. You could take your vase stamps, line them up where it's going to cut, where it's going to stamp. I'm going to just do this quickly and easily so that, you know, this is trying to keep this down to an hour, but hey, it ain't happening. But I'm going to try. Okay. So what you could do is you could pick all those up. There's that photopolymer pull again. I should have put my plastic down, huh? Ah. Oh well, hopefully. Nope, it's out of place here. Let's pull it up. That looks good. All right, so now I'm just going to use ugly black because of time, mostly. All right, so I've done that. Now, you know, I did have that photopolymer pull, so it's not going to be perfect. So what you would do is you'd come in, get your, and line it up perfectly, which I would do if I wasn't in a hurry, and stamp, and then you're going to have all your little images stamped out for you. And of course you could do different colors too if you wanted to do alternating plates, like we did with, you know, you could stamp one vase, then flip over your plate, stamp another vase. But for time's sake, we did them all in one color. But that's another trick that you can use to save time and paper. 2 more things, guys. This Stamparatus is great for this stamp set or any layering stamp set where you're going to do like the cat. So I would do, and if you were going to do a lot, you could do, this is the main body. That photopolymer pull, I forgot to put my little strip down. It wasn't too bad though. Okay, so that's my outline, and I'm going to flip this over. And because these are photopolymer, you can kind of do this, but rather than, I'm going to pick it up gently, I'm going to use my, if I can find it, my piece of 4x6. That's the only problem about the window sheets. If you lay it down, heaven help you go find it, right? Here it is. You might put a permanent X or something on it. So before I stamp on that, I want to make sure, hey, is that gonna work? Because, you know, I thought I lined it up, but maybe it's not lined up. So before I stamp, I can stamp on this plastic, and I'm like, yeah, that looks good enough. I might move it if I was, you know, thinking that I wanted it perfect, but I'm just showing you technique here. So now that I have it the way I want it, to be sure to dry that off good so it'll take the ink. Now I'm going to ink that up and stamp my kitty's stripes. He looks like he could use a little more. And there's my kitty. And that's what's great about the Stamparatus. Now with these in place the way they are, I could just come back here and, well, I wouldn't even really need to, I could stamp this part first. Flip it around. And stamp that part. And then I could do multiples that way. And some stamp sets you have like 3 that you have to stack on. We had a cupcake not too long ago, a cupcake stamp that had like 3 levels to it, and this would have been great for that, but alas, they retired it, so it's not around anymore. All right, so goodbye, kitties. Lastly, and I hope I saved the best for last, we're going to do the wreath stamping. Okay, and get my stuff out here. Now this is a template here for wreath stamping. I used wreath stamping to do this little guy, the little flies all around him. I used the wreath stamping method. If you go on YouTube and you search wreath stamping, you'll find lots of gorgeous wreaths and stuff. I just thought, since he's such a popular guy, we would go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to show you how I made my thing. My thing. And it's real easy. All you need is the largest square from the layering squares. So I took one of these guys and I cut off the measurements, and then I cut off these half and wonky squares that aren't a full inch. And when I did that, I ended up with 6 full-inch squares across and 6 up high, which is this right here. So I know that this is my center. 3 up, 3 down, 3 across, and 3 across. So I'm going to just center this here. Now this is eyeballing it, but you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly. All right, so I have like the same distances top and bottom, and that looks good to me, so I'm going to tape it. It slid a little bit. And I'm using the Scotch removable tape. It's better than washi. Okay, now that I have this, I want to cut a piece of thick Whisper White 6 by 6 inches. I thought I had one cut, but, and I'm not gonna lie, guys. I love my Stampin' Up trimmer, but if I want to get a exact, I can see where this is going to cut. So that's how I got my perfect 6x6 grid paper. And I use this for most of the bulk of my work because it just works better for me to have a rotary. So this matches now at 6x6. So yeah, I use my rotary to get the nice cut. Because with the Stampin' Up one, it's kind of hard to find that perfect, where the line is perfect. So I'm going to, because I don't want this to shift underneath, I'm going to take some tape and just wrap it around on 2 of the corners like this. And it's the removable, so it's not going to make a problem. So I'm going to run this through my Big Shot. Okay, so there we go. We have this, and we'll use this later to stamp on. And I'm going to gently remove this. It is removable, so it comes up. You just have to be nice to it. Don't yank it. Okay. And I actually can use this again, probably. I usually can. So I have my first cut. So now I'm going to get my, and if you use washi, that should be fine as long as it doesn't move. That's what's important. Okay, so now I'm ready to do my second cut to get the rest of my star, or my whatever that is. Okay, so I've cut this way. Now I need to cut that way. And I'll put this on something black so you can see it. But I don't want to, I had a piece of black cardstock here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it this way. Hi, Janine. Hannah has your package, your goodies. So you see how there's a line here and a line here? I'm lining up these corners with this line, these lines here. The corners of the die, and then when I have them lined up, then probably these are going to be even distances. And now I'm just going to tape down this. Put this next to my paper again. And believe me, you do want to go ahead and tape these two together, because if you don't, it will slide, and then you won't have a, it's already sliding. All right, it is already sliding. Come on. Be nice. Match it up really well. Come on. It's really not that hard. I didn't have that much trouble before. It's just because I'm on camera. I'm making sure that everything meets up nice and even. That's important. Okay. Most importantly, the inside. Make sure that the insides meet where the square is, because that's what you're going to be using. Okay, and now I'm ready to send it through my Big Shot again. And we have our little star, and I'm not going to be too careful with the die, because like I said, I'm kind of in a hurry. so throw the die away there. Not away, but so now we have, that shows you how to make the, now this is basic. I have seen some, I played around earlier and I did one that had like 16 points to it. I don't know what I did with it. I might have chucked it. I'm thinking, wow, that's too much. I don't want to confuse them. All right, so now that we have this, we're going to bring our little piece of cardstock that we cut, and we're going to bring in our Stamparatus. And what else do we need? We need our stamp, a little froggy stamp. These are rubber, so I need my blue thin mat and my 1/16 of an inch. And you know, I got this from, I think, you know, sometimes when you buy foil from Stampin' Up, the foil sheets and stuff like that, you'll get some nice cardstock stuff in there, so you don't have to go out and buy something. All right, where's me? Okay, here we go. Keep that in place. So first we're going to stamp our little froggy in the center. But if you were, you know, if you wanted to do a sentiment in the center, you could do that. There's our little froggy. He's going to be in black. Okay, now the little flies, they actually come in 3, but I only use 2. Clean my little froggy up. Give him a bath. He likes that. Okay, back in the box, buddy. You're done. Fun's over. All right, so there's one that's kind of away, flying away from them, and then there's 2 that are kind of together. The 2 that are kind of together, there's the ones I used, and I started out putting them like right here, kind of, and I picked it up. Now I'm going to use my tape, or you could use washi. I'm just going to cover up that one guy that is just like flying solo over there. He's far away. Be sure not to get your fingers inky. So I'm going to stamp my 2 there. Now here's where the magic happens. You tilt it, you turn it, 1 turn. Okay, I'm going to cover that guy up again. Ink up my little flies. Now this one's a little off because, you know, I'm rushing, but you can take your time and position it perfectly. Okay, so he's got some flies going around him now, and I've seen cards where they've just got those guys, but I'm like, oh, I wanted to go all the way around. It's like he's dreaming, you know, like if a frog was to dream, he would dream that there's all these flies like all around him, a big circle of flies to choose from. He can pick any of them out he wants. So, I mean, I'm assuming that's what a frog would dream. I really don't know. I'm just guessing. But you could do this with flowers. I've seen it done. And then you don't have to cut it in a circle after you're done. You could, okay, get in there. where you belong. I don't know if I inked that up or not. So, whoops, I know I turned it one too many. I missed on this one here. There we go. Almost done. One more turn. So this is what they call wreath stamping. If you've seen it, it's fun to play with. Fun to do some experimenting with. All right, so yeah, I had this, which we could have used it like that, but I decided to cut it. I cut it with the second largest circle die. But these frogs, these are a little further out than the ones for here, so I would probably have to use a bigger. They probably needed to be in closer, so just be sure you get them in closer if you want to replicate that. And then on the outside, I used the largest stitched shaped circle. And I colored them in Mossy Meadow, light and dark Mossy Meadow, with Mossy Meadow in the background, light and dark Smoky Slate. And my writing is yucky, but it gets the point across. All right, well, that's it, guys. I hope that I've given you some fun ideas to use your Stamparatus so that you can fall in love with your Stamparatus as much as I am in love with mine. And it's been a while since we've been on here, so I'm going to let you guys go. And next month I will have a little special on adhesives. Adhesives, how to use them, how to remove them, and some fun tricks to take your backing off of your dimensionals.